In this video, I want to show you guys how you can recreate those super dreamy and vibey guitar beats all from scratch in FL Studio. These samples usually sound super complex, but I'm seriously going to break it down very simple for you guys, so you guys can pretty much just follow along with the same steps, and you should be able to get the same type of sound out of it. As you guys know, I don't really want to waste your guys' time, so let's just jump straight in. Alright, so now we are here in FL Studio 21, as you guys can see. First things first, I've just lowered the BPM down to about 130, and the guitar we're going to be using for this tutorial is going to be this electric vintage guitar in Contact. I'm just using all the standard settings, so nothing really too complex there. As for the scale we're going to be working in, this time it's going to be D minor. So to start off with, all we want to do is just lay down a D minor chord. So since we are using a guitar, we obviously want to strum out the notes a little bit. Now this first chord is actually going to be the foundation of our sample. So the main things you really want to focus on when you're going for these dreamy type of guitar beats is to make sure you have some space in between the notes. Usually if you're trying to create some tension or going for more darker stuff, you would usually focus on these notes that are right next to each other. But for this sample right here, you have to make sure that you have some space in between the notes you're using. So let's just use this as an example. You can see there's one space in between right here, and there's also two spaces in between right here. So make sure you leave some space in between the notes and you should pretty much get the sound you're looking for. Now let's start off by inverting this middle note up one octave. Then we can add one note over here and maybe one down here as well. Lastly, we're just going to repeat this A note at the end, and that should pretty much be nice for the first bar. So as I said, the first chord in the first bar is going to be our foundation. So now we just want to copy this over to the second bar as well. But this time you want to do some slight changes, especially on the root notes down here. So we can actually shorten this one halfway, and then we can maybe add one note down here on the C as well. To make it a little bit more interesting, I'm actually also going to pitch this down by 4 semitones. Now we also want to do some slight changes with the notes we have laid down. So just play a little bit around with the pitch of your notes. So as an example, we can pitch this up over here to this G, while we can move this A down to this G5. You also want to make sure you extend some of the notes from the first chord over to the second part. It's going to make it come together a little bit more, and it's going to sound way smoother as well. Now we have both of these two bars over here, so this time we can again just copy it over, but now we can actually also start to add some top notes at this part. So a nice trick that I like to do for this part is just copy the root note, but I'm actually going to pitch it up by 2 octaves. You also want to zoom in, hold Alt on your keyboard and move it slightly to the side. This is again just so it's a little bit more realistic and it doesn't hit on the exact same time as this D. So that right there is going to be our main guitar pattern. But to really get that dreamy and ambient type of vibe, we have to do some important stuff with the effects. So the first thing I'm going to add is going to be this delay in effect track. It's just using this mid-res slapper preset. Then to really amplify the electric guitar and get a more realistic sound, I'm just using this acoustic shrunken preset in CLA guitars. And then for the ambience, I've just added this Valhalla vintage verb. You can really hear it makes a huge difference. Then I also just have this EQ to cut out a little bit of that low end, and a few other frequencies as well. Lastly, I'm just going to add this Older Days preset in Guitar Rig 6. The only thing you have to make sure when you're using this preset is that you turn off the first 2 effects, and then you can also turn the gain up a little bit because it's going to reduce the volume. Lastly, we have a RC20 just using the Vinyl 3 preset as usual. Now this is how the guitar sounds without any effects on. You can hear it's pretty dry and it lacks that ambience. Now this is how it sounds when we put the effects on. Now it's super dreamy and it really has that ambience to the whole sample. Now the next sound for the sample is going to be this BBC Symphony Orchestra from Spitfire Audio. This is actually a completely free plugin, so if you guys want to use the same one, you can go copy it for free. So we just want to tuck this a little bit in the background. Again, just using this Valhalla vintage verb. Then I'm also just cutting out the high end, just so it really tuck it in the background of the guitar. Now these Dreamy guitar samples usually always include some sort of vocals. So I just dragged in this vocal sample from Splice and it sounds like this. Now to make that vocal sample sound more dreamy and ambient, I'm firstly just going to pitch it up by 1 octave using this sound shifter. Then I added a little bit of roam at about 42%. Then I'm also going to use this EQ to really cut out those high frequencies that are super harsh when we're pitching up the sample. And then lastly we have this rich echo preset from Effect Track. It's just a delay plugin, but it's really going to add that rich sound to the vocal. So it really blends in with the guitar right now. Lastly, I just went into my Imperial one-shot kit and I just dragged in this Summer Birds texture over here. Now that right there is pretty much the full sample. The last thing we're going to do is just play a little bit around with the pitch and see if it maybe sounds a little bit better if you pitch it down. Yeah, so I really like how it sounds when I pitch it down by 2 semitones. Now that we have the whole sample, let's go and add some drums. As for all the drum sounds I'm using, they are of course coming from my Euphoria bundle kit. So if you guys like the drum sounds you hear, you can obviously go check out the kit. It's on my website, it's BBMarko.com, or you can just click the first link down below. Yeah, so we just have this clap and snare. As for the hi-hat pattern, I'm just going to do it super simple and drag in a MIDI from the Euphoria bundle kit. Yeah, this one is fire. So I'm just adding some simple open hats now that we have the hi-hat pattern down. Yeah, that's nice. Now to add some more bounce, we're going to add some perks and snares. Yeah, that's nice. And that's a little bit of a subtle perk roll right there. Yeah, but it's kind of fire. Now let's go in and add the kick and the 808. I think a simple pattern like this should work. Yeah, this is with the kick as well. So as you guys know, I'm quickly just going to arrange the whole thing and then I'll show you guys the final beat at the end. So this is the final arrangement. In the intro we have the guitar, the texture and the vocal.
Shut up, Marco. Marco?
Then it drops right into the hook without the vocal. Here we have the strings in the background with the drums. Then the vocal comes in for the second part. Yeah, that's fire right there. Then we slow it down for the verse. So we delayed a little bit of the drums. Here we have the hi-hats and the rest. Then we're back with the vocals. Now we have the kick playing as well. Then it pretty much just goes back to the intro. But this acts more like a bridge. And it drops right back in.